Hello, everybody. I hope you're enjoying our State of the Union content that we brought everyone yesterday. However, there is another major event that bears addressing on behalf of the Breaking Points community. You might have noticed we were on the Joe Rogan Experience, and Joe actually brought up what happened with Ilhan Omar, her removal from the House Foreign Affairs Committee over alleged anti-Semitism. In the course of that discussion, he made a joke which is, let's just say, not being well received. We are going to play the full context for all of you and then break down the ensuing controversy that has embroiled all of us here at Breaking Points. Let's take a listen to the clip first.
I just saw Nancy Pelosi is endorsing Adam Schiff for California Senate. When you read through the way that man lied to the American public through all of Russiagate, you're like, yeah, he should be in prison for perjury, not being bolstered by one of the most powerful women in the country for the United States Senate.
Sitting next to Ilhan Omar, where she's apologizing for talking about it's all about the Benjamins, which is just about money. She's talking about money. She
shouldn't have apologized.
That's not an anti-Semitic statement. I don't think that is. It's about Benjamins or money. You know, the idea that Jewish people are not into money is ridiculous.
Listen.
That's like saying Italians aren't into pizza. It's fucking stupid.
Listen.
It's fucking stupid.
I understand that the way she phrased it, she could have phrased it a different way so that people would have less of a freak out. But can you not talk about the influence of money in D.C.?
Of course.
This is very obvious. There's a very obvious reason why for my entire life there's been a uniparty consensus around our policy vis-a-vis the Israeli government and a total inability or unwillingness to criticize the Israeli government. It has everything to do with organization and, yes, money, just like every other fucking interest in D.C. And so, the fact that she said that and she got kicked off the Foreign Affairs Committee, look, I have issues and disagreements with Ilhan Omar, but she actually is one of the more courageous voices on foreign policy who's willing to call out some of the hypocrisy and bullshit in U.S. foreign policy. Extremely rare in terms of United States congressmen. So it's actually kind of a real loss that she got kicked off that committee.
Yeah, whether you agree with her or not, she has a bold opinion, and that opinion is not her own. There's many people that have that opinion, and they should be represented.
Totally
My
agree.
point is she's sitting right next to Adam Schiff, and no one says shit. She doesn't say, I probably should have said, hey, motherfucker, what did you say?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right.
You said some crazy shit that wasn't true at all.
No.
Okay, so that's the clip. Now you have it in its full glory. You can decide for yourself whether he was being anti-Semitic or not. However, many people have decided to use a bad faith view of what happened there and accused not only Joe Rogan, however, Krystal and I as well as somehow being anti-Semitic. So let me go ahead and read this tweet from Representative Josh Gottheimer, Democratic congressman best known for trying to save the millionaire SALT deduction. He says, quote, "It is despicable language like this that leads to attacks and threats against Jewish people. Joe Rogan has a massive platform. It's infuriating to watch him and Krystal Ball promote blatant, dangerous anti-Semitic tropes, including those masquerading as anti-Israel sentiments." So, Krystal, I just want to throw it to you for your reaction because not only Gottheimer, but the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, is now condemning Joe Rogan. They're condemning us. We have multiple pro-Israel groups calling us somehow anti-Semitic for talking about the role of money in politics and the way that lobbying works. So what was your reaction to all of this nonsense?
First of all, I went back and thought through, our time with Joe and that particular moment. And to the extent that I really thought about what he said that deeply at all, it was sort of it's a off-color, women be shopping level of joke. And so then I went on to make the points that I think are really important, that I 100% stand by, which is that it's not anti-Semitic to talk about the influence of money in politics with regards to any topic, and even when it comes to the topic of our government's relationship with Israel and Israeli government policy. I think it is nonsense that Ilhan Omar got taken off of a committee because of her comments. I don't think anything she said was anti-Semitic. I don't think there was anything wrong with what she said. And I think we have to be able to be honest about the way money works in D.C., without just casually throwing around these very harmful and damaging and ugly labels. So, Gottheimer's tweet, I don't even really 100% understand what he's saying there about, masquerading as anti-Israel or something like that. I'm not even clear on what he means by that, but I can tell you personally, I 1000% stand by the comments that I made and my view of the situation with Ilhan Omar, and I would say it again any day of the week.
You have nothing to apologize for. For all of the people who are out there saying, how dare you? Why didn't you confront him? First of all, he's a comedian and he was making a joke. Now, I'm not going to say it was the most artfully phrased joke or whatever in the world. And, if he wants to clean it up, that's on him. Number two, we were having a substantive discussion around the removal of a United States congressman around allegations that she made that influence of money in politics, something that we all seem to agree affects every platform on earth, but we're not allowed to discuss it here. As people can probably tell, I'm really upset because I'm not going to just sit here and let people smear you and Joe Rogan as anti-Semitic. We've got every pro-Israel group and all these congressmen on the planet denouncing us as somehow anti-Semitic by allyship or some bullshit like that because we sat by and didn't immediately call him out. Now, once again, I don't think that it was the best phrased joke. At the same time, who are you? What, you're the editor now? And, even then, take a step back. Do you believe Joe Rogan is an anti-Semite? I don't believe that. I don't believe that for a second. Do I believe, Krystal, that you were being anti-Semitic whenever you were talking about, the influence of money in politics and how that relates to Israel? No, it's complete and utter nonsense. And this is how they smear people who want to talk about this at all. So I'm really, honestly outraged by this entire thing and the way that people have reacted to it in the broader establishment. And here's the worst part, as you and I know, Krystal. How many people will watch the full episode in a full context, in the full clip? How many people will dismiss what you said about that substantive point because of the joke that preceded it? And just so much of this is just completely ridiculous. But they got the headlines that they wanted. They got the headlines that they wanted. Breaking Points is anti-Semitic. Joe Rogan is anti-Semitic. And a lot of people aren't gonna look past this. That's actually what's the most disgusting part of it all.
There's a whole outrage industrial complex. And so the fact that, he makes this offhanded, off-color joke and that we don't immediately jump, how dare you, Joe Rogan, and jump on our high horse, but instead use it as a moment to talk about the legitimate criticism of DC and the way that money in politics works. Listen, honestly, I don't let it bother me that much because I think these people are bad faith. I think they're just looking for a way to take shots. I don't think they really are deeply offended or morally outraged or people are saying, oh, this is so dangerous. Come on. It was the State of the Union last night. There are so many larger issues at stake than one off-color joke made by Joe Rogan and how we responded to it in the moment in, our 1 hour and 30 minutes into a 3 hour plus podcast. So listen, it is what it is. Like I said, for me personally, the direction I steered the conversation in, the comments I made about Ilhan Omar, about the way DC works, about what you're allowed to say, what you're not allowed to say, I stand by it. I'd say it again. I just said it today. And I don't think there is anything remotely anti-Semitic about talking about the influence of money in politics. And it is absolute bullshit that Ilhan Omar was pulled off of a committee because she was honest about such influence.
Well, I agree. Actually, we didn't even get a talk to comment about that substantively. I think what happened is totally ridiculous. Especially, you're actually playing into the trope that you're not allowed to talk about it by removing them from the committee. And actually, that's what this entire thing has revealed to me, which is that you are what? Are we not allowed to have that discussion? Now, I deplore anti-Semitism. I think it's terrible. But conflating criticism of Israel with anti-Semitism is freaking ridiculous. And, even to come back to what Rogan was talking about, as you said, he was making, as I understand it, and as I understood it in the moment, it was one of those things where, everybody likes money. Now, look, I wouldn't have phrased it the way that he said, but also, who are you? You're going to, sit in the room with us while we're all laughing or whatever, having a good time and being the editor of all of this and then having your faux outrage. I've seen a lot of so-called free speech warriors, Krystal, people who believe in free speech. Oh, this is so terrible, pushing this, cancellation campaign. They're like, we got to get right-wingers to stand up or whatever against Joe Rogan. These people are all complete frauds. In my estimation, they're jealous of him. They're jealous of the fact that they don't have as big of a platform. And they are the ones proving the trope that we're not allowed to have this discussion without being called anti-Semitic. And that is why I remain outraged by watching people supposedly, Krystal and Saagar or whatever, of the free speech come out and, denounce us and denounce Joe. They're full of shit. Like, let's be honest.
This is always the issue where it really comes down to it. I mean, I've said this for a long time. The issue you're most likely to get canceled on is supporting Palestine, criticizing Israel. And that's listen, I care about free speech for the principle of it, not because of which side it happens to help or hurt in the moment. But yeah, there's a lot of hypocrisy that's kind of exposed by this moment. Listen, again, off-color, offhand joke made by a comedian in the middle of a 3-hour podcast. Is this really what we're like going to the mat over? I just feel like there are so many more important things for people to actually care about and get outraged about. And back to Mr. Gottheimer, by the way, one of those things perhaps people should be outraged about is this is one of the most corrupt members of Congress. As you said, Saagar, he was like the guy pushing for the millionaire SALT tax break. And one of the top funded congressmen from the private equity industry that he has gone and carried water for. And guess what? I think we should be able to talk about that. And I don't think that it's anti-Semitic to do so.
Yeah. Yeah. He's the one who calls himself Mr. Salt. His entire thing is bringing back a tax deduction, which disproportionately helps millionaires and multimillionaires, specifically in California and New York. And he has the gall to come after you, to come after Rogan, for talking about also, somehow making this into an anti-Semitic thing. So anyways, I thought we owed people a reaction to it. As people can say, I'm pretty hopped up about this entire thing. And I don't know. I'm often reminded of just how disgusting and how disgusting and inconsistent so many people claim to be whenever it comes to free speech. And secondary, on the mainstream media. I mean, you got to go look every headline, Variety, Mediaite, all these other people. They're rubbing their hands together, relishing this complete BS controversy because they have it out for Joe. Joe is going to be fine. All right. It'll be fine. We will be fine here over at Breaking Points. But that's not the point. You can't just call people anti-Semitic. You can't just throw these things out there and try and spin it into a whole thing in the service of your agenda. And we are not going to apologize. I can tell you that right now. For all the people who've reached out and said, oh, you guys got to put your distance between yourselves and Joe. Yeah, I'll save my most vulgar language for my response to that.
The last thing that I'll say about all of this is you can go back and look at our record of, how we've talked about these issues many, many times on Breaking Points, about our, full-throated condemnation of real anti-Semitism, like what was on display with Kanye West. I mean, the record is clear. So if you're super outraged about how we, navigated this one moment in the middle of a 3-hour podcast, I would encourage you to look at the larger body of work. And again, listening back to the comments that I made immediately in the wake of it, where, clearly I directed the conversation right to what really matters, the influence of money in politics, 100% stand by it. No regrets. I'd say it and do it all over again.
Good. All right. So you guys know where we stand. For all of those who have asked us about the controversy, this is the last thing that we will say about it unless they want to keep this thing going. We can go all day. But everybody enjoy all the content out on the channel today. We've got our Breaking Points State of the Union for the podcast. We have the full audio of all of our pre and post coverage of the State of the Union. And also shout out to many of the people taking advantage of the premium discount we have going on right now, 10% off for all of the JRE listeners who joined us since that podcast. I don't regret going on that podcast. I don't regret anything that we said on that podcast. And for the critics, I'll save it for later for my more off-color comments. All right, that's it. We'll see you guys later.